Hey guys, it's Paul again at mytechclasses.com. I'm excited. I'll be introducing you into SQL, Structured Query Language. Sit back, relax. I will get back to you on this. Welcome back. SQL is a structured query language which helps you access and manipulate databases. Today we have a lot of software out there, desktop software and applications online, website and the rest of it. They all have databases because that is where their data is basically stored. And for them to retrieve this data to show to you using an application or on the website, they have background SQL queries that communicate with these databases to retrieve this data, format them and show certain information to you on those applications or on the website. Businesses, organizations, institutions today store their data in databases, and they all need SQL to communicate with these databases to retrieve data and to do all sorts of things with the data. As a software developer, you need SQL. Even though you're very good in C#, C++, Python, PHP, whatever code it is or language it is, you need to embed a lot of SQL code in whatever it is you're doing. As a data scientist, as a data developer, as a data engineer, you also need to write a lot of complex SQL queries, for you to be able to work with data, move data from one point to the other, and to do a lot of things with it. So SQL basically is the foundation for everything you really want to go into. An average professional in IT must know how to write basic SQL codes, because at the end of the day, whatever it is you're doing, whatever role you're playing, somehow you need to communicate with database. You need to have that skill to write queries and to do all sorts of things with SQL. You might not be an expert in SQL, but to a very large extent, you can write queries to communicate with database, to do all sorts of things with data. So it is very key and foundational for you to learn this before anything else, because once you're very good in writing, once you're very good in writing SQL codes, you've just started and that's it. Welcome back. Now there are a number of things we can do with SQL. We can execute queries against database. We can retrieve data from a database. We can insert records into a database. We can update records already existing in databases. We can delete records from a database. We can create new databases. We can create new tables in a database. We can create stored procedures in a database. We can create views in a database. We can set permissions on tables and procedures, as well as on views. So these are some of the things we will talk about during the course of this lecture, and more importantly, show you practically using a database management system. Okay, there are quite a lot we can do outside this, but on the basic level, these are some of the key things we can do with SQL, and the focus is SQL queries, which is the text, the language itself, and the database, where our database tables are stored. Database is a structured environment that hosts tables. Our data is actually stored in tables. Before we got to this point, back then people were used to Excel even till today. In Excel spreadsheet, we have different sheets. You open up a workbook, you have different sheets, and the data in Excel is stored in tables. You see column by column, rows by rows, but in a database, you don't see a physical record, but you can only get to see what's in the database tables by writing queries to look up whatever values or figures you have stored in the tables. Welcome back. Relational Database Management System, RDBMS. This is basically a database engine. Okay, for you to be able to create database, create tables, you need an engine to be able to sign on to, log into, for you to have access that enables you to create this. Okay, so RDBMS is basically a database engine. We have a number of them out there. We have Microsoft SQL Server, we have IBM DB2, we have Oracle, we have MySQL. MySQL is basically owned by Oracle, and we have Microsoft Access. So these are relational database management system. For you to be able to create a database, you need a relational database management system that gives you the opportunity to do that. So in that relational database management system, it has provisions for you to create database. It has provisions for you to manage access control for users who need to sign in, sign on, create database. So you need to, it has provisions for you to create all the necessary security for access and to define what users can do when they get on that solution. Okay, so the most popular ones are actually MySQL and MS SQL. So we will be using Microsoft SQL Server to demonstrate how to write queries and do all sort of things. Okay, so when you create a database, what follows is for you to create the tables that you need to host your data. Okay, imagine someone who set up a business. Let's say, for instance, the business is dealing on fruits. You sell fruits. Okay, you just want to store your sales transaction. You create a sales table in your database. First, you create a database, and in that database, you create all the tables that you need. A table that stores sales transaction, a table that stores customer information, a table that stores product information. All of these can be done simply writing SQL queries, okay, or using a software provided by the database management provider. For Microsoft SQL, we have MS SQL as Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, for MySQL, we have MySQL Workbench. So these are software you can use to create databases, write SQL, manage your database. Okay, but for now we'll be using Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so on to the next. Before going into the practicalities of what we've talked about, just wanted to understand that every table in a database is broken up into smaller entities called fields. A record is called a row and a horizontal entity in a table. A column is a vertical entity in a table that contains all information associated with a specific field in a table. Okay, so when we talk about fields in a table, a database table, we're referring to columns. Okay, this is more like what we have in Excel, where you have your data having headers. So each of the headers in your spreadsheet is called column. So this also applies here. Okay, we'll be looking at certain areas, commands and syntax, show you some practicalities around that when I pop up Management Studio, data manipulation and syntax, aggregations and syntax, conditional formatting, stored procedure. Okay, so we'll start with lesson 1, where we look at some commands and the syntax behind these commands: select, distinct, where, order by, and, or not. Okay, so we'll look at all of these in a moment as we pop up SQL Management Studio.